قابض الباسط الخافض الرافع المعز المذل السميع البصير الحكم اللطيف الخبير العليم العظيم الغفور الشكور العلي الكبير الحفيظ المقيم الحسيب الجليل الكريم الرقيب المجيب الواسع الحكيم الودود المجيد الباعث الشهيد الحق الوكيل القوي المتين الولي الحميد المحسن المبدع المعيد المحيي المميت الحي القيوم الواجد الماجد الواحد الصمد القادر المقتدر المقدم المؤخر الأول الآخر الظاهر الباطن الوالي المتعالي البر التواب المنتقم العفو رؤوف مالك الملك ذو الجلال والإكرام المقسط الجامع الغني المغني المانع الضار النافع النور الهادي البديع الباقي الوارث الرشيد الصبور.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the Careers Advice Show with myself, Zanab, and my co-host, Fozia, your host for the hour. You are listening to Ramadan Radio on 87.9 FM. Okay, so before we carry on, Sister Hadia just finished her show and she said Assalamu alaikum to everyone. She got just cut off before the break. So coming back to our show, the show is jam-packed with careers advice. We have two very important guests on the show today from the medical field and from West Midlands Police. So if you have any questions for our guests today, please text in on 074 404 20432, or you could call in onto the studio on 01902 972 150. So before we introduce you to our first guest, I'm going to hand it over to Fozia to give us a quick recap of our last show.
Assalamu alaikum. So last week, basically, we looked at how to make the right career choice for yourself and to take into account what skills you already had and whether you wanted a lot of interaction with people at your job or if you would prefer a behind-the-desk job. So last week, we also mentioned there was a website that you could access, allaboutcareers.com, and there was a careers test that you could sit on that website that would put your skills and your interests and your attributes that you had together and match up some interests or some careers that would suit you. Now, today we're going to look at a little bit about how to pursue a particular career and gain that best advice to enable you to be the best in that field. So the first point that I want to mention is asking someone who is successful in that particular field. Now, for doing that, and if you do that, this person who gives you the information back or the ability to look deeper into their career, it will help them find use their experience to help you to understand the challenges that that career can pose, and it helps you to come up with viable solutions for you to take on board, which will help you in that career as well. The second point is to find a mentor. Now, when I say a mentor, I don't mean just somebody personal to you or somebody you know professionally. Turn to a mentor who is going to be unbiased, so somebody who will look at you for who you are and be able to give you some criticism as well. And because all they want eventually is for you to be successful in that position, and they will be able to give you strategic advice right to the end. And the last point as well that I've got is to be open to tough love. So when criticism is given to you, be able to take it on the chin and be able to take it and be able to think that, okay, so this is what they've said and how you can reflect on that and how you can change yourself to be able to be successful in the career choice that you wanted to pursue. Now, ultimately, it's down to yourselves, and you need to ensure you follow the career path that you have passion for. And you are not just pursuing a career because of pressures from others to go down that specific career route, Because if you have passion for something, then you can be successful in that field and you'll also enjoy your job.
Okay, thank you for that, Fozia. That was very informative. I mean, in terms of careers, each week we're looking at different career paths from people from different fields. So we're going to have on the show shortly Detective Constable Tariq Mahmood from West Midlands Police, who will ring in shortly. But before we go to him, I'd like to play you a little nasheed by Sami Yusuf.
Oh Allah the Almighty, Allahu Allah, protect me and guide me, Allahu Allah, oh to your love and mercy, Allahu Allah, Ya Allah don't deprive me, Allahu Allah, from beholding your beauty, Allahu Allah, oh my Lord accept this please, Allahu Allah. ربي جل الله الله الله ما في قلبي غير الله الله الله على الهدي صلى الله الله الله لا إله إلا الله الله الله وتنهى كونه الله الله بادشاه كونه الله الله بابو کونه ہے اللہ اللہ کیا اونچی شان ہے اللہ اللہ اس کی سب نشان ہے اللہ اللہ سب دلوں کی جان ہے اللہ اللہ حسبی ربی جل اللہ اللہ اللہ ما فی قلبی غیر اللہ günahı Allahu Allah alemin padişahı Allahu Allah yüreklerin penahı Allahu Allah İşit Allah derdimi bu ahlarımı rahmeyle bağışla günahlarımı hayreyle hem akşam hem sabahlarımı.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our careers show with myself Fozia and with myself Zanab and Fozia. Okay, I'd like to introduce to you our first guest of the day. It is Detective Constable Tariq Mahmood from West Midlands Police. Welcome to the show, Tariq.
Thank you.
It is absolutely fantastic to have you here to give us a bit of an insight of what you do. So we're going to go straight in and ask you, how did you become interested in your current field of work?
Well, it goes back a long time ago when I was 7 years old, when I had inspirations to become a police officer at the age of 7.
Okay.
And as I grew older, the more police I saw, the more interested I became, but never thought I was clever enough to become a police officer.
So how long have you been in the police force then?
Right, I've been in the police now for 28 years.
Okay, that is a really long time. So
Really long time, yeah.
Yes, it is, isn't it? So I'm sure you've seen many things over the years. So can you just tell us a bit about, what your job entails really, and what are your main responsibilities, and what kind of things you've done over the years?
Okay. Over my 28 years, I've had a variety of roles, which I've I've been involved in. Obviously started with 2 years on probation, starting on the 999 calls on the response cars. People think that's the fun side of it, racing from one job to another. Yeah, it can be fun, but it's also the serious element side of it, of all the 999 emergency calls that are coming in and we're responding to it. I've done various squads such as robbery squad, vehicle squad, burglary squads, and then I joined CID in 2000 and the year 2000.
Okay, and what does that entail then?
The CID is a very specialised post. It's like for serious criminal matters, which it stands for Criminal Investigations Department. The CID does. And basically that involves serious crimes such as your murders, your rapes, woundings, complex cases, and volume type cases such as robberies, burglaries, etc. And basically then from there, obviously I've worked in the major investigation unit. I've done live kidnaps. I've also worked in major force CID work and also serious and complex investigations as well.
Right.
And
It seems
currently I'm working on complex investigations involving modern day slavery and human trafficking.
okay. So you've done quite a bit over the last 28 years. You've been quite busy then.
Yeah, very busy, very busy. You know what I mean? And it has been quite rewarding and satisfying as well, especially when you're rescuing people, you're helping people, you're, and also, helping them to achieve justice, when people have been victims of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here to look after the vulnerable members of our society. Sometimes they can't look after themselves and they do need law enforcement and authorities to look after them.
Right.
And it's true, actually, that must be such a rewarding job as well as helping people and the vulnerable. Now, the next question I want to ask is, what are your main responsibilities as a detective constable?
Well, my main responsibilities are to secure and preserve evidence, identify any witnesses, and obviously take and secure the evidence that we need in order to prosecute people, and that's what my main responsibilities are. Gathering the evidence and making sure that we present it in a logical, structured manner for prosecution, for the Crown Prosecution Service. Our job is basically to gather evidence, when people have been victims of.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. So in terms of what skills and abilities and personal attributes are essential to success in your job?
Right. Obviously, there's a number of things that you need in order to become a police officer, depending on what entry route you decide to take. You know what I mean? It's like nowadays you need like either a degree or a non-degree holder. Those are the two main entry levels that come into policing nowadays. So, for example, if you hold a degree, which is the route for that one, you've achieved a level 2 qualification in both English and maths. For example, a GCSE or an IGCSE, a grade C, level 4 or above. Functional skills level 2, key skill levels, communication, literacy, and adult numeracy. Level 3 qualifications in any subject, they equate to 64 UCAS points, or full level 4 or 5 qualifications. These points could be from your A-levels, level 3 diplomas, NVQs, and an international baccalaureate, to name a few. But you need to check with UCAS points, see as to where you are with that.
Okay.
And in your final year of your level 3 qualifications, and be predicted to achieve a minimum of 96 UCAS points.
Okay, that is really interesting, and thank you for that, Tariq. We've got some texts coming in to the studio, and people are asking that within the police, some people feel that they face racism. So, how did you manage to progress in your career? So quickly over the years. Have you faced any racism while you were working in your different job roles?
Yeah. I'm quite a focused, structured type of person. I've dealt with difficulties and challenging times in the organisation. Yes, we all have that. But for you to change things, the only way you're going to change things if you're part of the processes and part of it. So we have to deal with them. And now, when I joined, I was one of the first Muslim police officers
Right.
in the Dudley area, and there was no Muslims at all. So I was one of the first ones, and people were shocked to see me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did
But
you feel a bit isolated then if you were the first person from the Muslim community to join the police force at that particular time? Because it is going back 28, 30 years.
sorry, say that again. Sorry.
So I said, did you feel a bit isolated because you're the only Muslim person to join the police at that particular time?
No, not really. To be fair, because racism existed in the playground, in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's how you deal with it as an individual, how strong-minded you are,
Mm-hmm.
how focused you are. It's changing from within rather than you can't change something from outside an organisation. Do you know what I mean? You've got to try and change it from within. But we are now more represented within West Midlands Police. Most communities are, and we want to increase that. We are, trying to target the underrepresented groups in our communities, such as Muslim female officers. We've got Muslim female officers in the police.
So
And I would encourage any
yeah.
sisters out there who wish to join the police, please do not put it off. Please really do consider it and apply.
Inshallah. I just feel that if you're wearing a hijab, you might feel a bit reluctant to join the police because you think maybe you have to compromise your deen or your culture just to fit in with the police. Is that the case, or is that?
That certainly is not the case, I can assure you. I practice my deen. I practice my faith, and I know culturally we've had challenges as a community, but our generation and the future generation, those mindsets are now changing, and we need to be part of that public sector, and this is a public sector that is like in the Quran. It says, if you save one life, you've saved all of mankind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, most definitely.
So if I'm a police officer, I'm out there doing a job of a police officer. If I've saved somebody's life, right, that means I'm contributing to the deen at the same time as doing my job.
Absolutely.
So, Tarek, I just wanted to ask you, you just mentioned about attributes and about how you had to adjust within the police force and with the racism, but what other attributes do you think are necessary with becoming a detective constable and within your job itself? Because you must see vulnerable people, like you mentioned earlier. You must have situations where you must go back home and think, oh goodness, that was tough to have witnessed, or it was tough to have been through this process.
Yeah, we do see things that the public don't see. Obviously, again, it comes back down to the individual and being strong-minded and being able to deal with it. There are basically help for you available through counselling, through therapy, etc. But it's how you deal with them. And there are some incidents that I have dealt with. I go home and I don't talk about them, but within the organisation there is facilities available for you to deal with those kind of matters.
So,
and it's just like any other occupation as well.
Do you think you've coped okay then, not talking about the situation?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you think you've coped okay, not talking about the situation you've witnessed?
No, it's good to talk. It's always good to talk. It's all, very good to take it off your chest, to share. You know what they say, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, I think within our culture as well, in our background, a lot of men are quite reluctant to go into the counselling side of it or approaching help. So I think it's important to understand that everybody needs help, and it is best to go out there and have that help if it's available for you, especially with a job like yours and witnessing so many probably horrific scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. It is quite important that everybody shares their problem, because you can't deal with it on own. There's no point bottling it up. It's good to talk. And it's okay to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, because there is plenty of help out there. You can stay anonymous, it can be confidential, it could be private, nobody else needs to know. It's between you and the organisation concerned, because you both signed certain agreements of confidentiality. So why not talk about it? Because the more we talk about things, the more we can get on with our lives and leaving that whatever's causing the problems behind.
Yeah, come to terms with understanding what's going on, exactly, yeah. So it's important to have resilience within the job and be able to talk about your problems when you have any as well.
Yeah. But honestly, it's one of the fantastic careers I've had. 28 years of my service, been in policing. I joined at the age of 22. I'm still in the police at the moment, a serving officer. Every day is different. Whenever I come to work, I do not know what I'm going to be dealing with that day. I could have a plan and a map in my head. I'm going to say I'm going to do this, this, and this, like you do, sometimes. But when I walk in, that could all change depending on what's happened overnight and what we've got to deal with. And obviously, everything is prioritised to safeguard people.
So is that an aspect of your job that you enjoy?
I thoroughly enjoy it. I even, I like to say, when I first joined, I had a lot of passion, enthusiasm and determination. That determination, passion and enthusiasm is still here today, every day when I walk into work, and that is to help the communities of the West Midlands Police, West Midlands, and to safeguard people and to help victims of crime. And that's what I'm here to do.
I'm pleased to hear that. Actually, you still have that passion as well. That's why it's important. And like we do say and give advice in this show, it's important to go for a job that you have passion for.
Absolutely, Fozia.
It is very, very important that if you select a job to do, you do a job to enjoy it. That's what I find quite rewarding about it, because I actually enjoy doing what I do.
Okay, excellent. So how does this current epidemic with the COVID-19 and with the police really busy and probation and so on, how does this impact on your work-life balance? How do you manage both?
Obviously, we're classed as key workers. It is unprecedented times that we've gone through. It's been quite challenging for everybody, including, from a personal perspective and a professional perspective, where we're social distancing. And we're encouraging people to basically engage with us. We're trying to engage with them, and we're trying to explain to them the reason as to why the lockdown is there and the COVID-19 and the social distancing. We're encouraging them to stay home, save lives, because if, for example, we all become ill and we then have an impact on the NHS, which means they haven't got that many beds, to cope for the whole of the community. Do you know what I mean? And so therefore, if we do our bit, if everybody does their bit, the less strain will be on the NHS, and those people who really do need that medical care will get that care. Do you know what I mean? Okay. But we can't be selfish, and we can't say we carry on doing as normal, because the virus is spread from human to human, and that's what we've got to prevent from doing it. And the government guidelines need to be encouraged, and we don't want to policing is something that is quite different. It's like back in the days, the public is the police and the police are the public. Okay. And that is really, really true. Those are the underpinning principles and Institute West Midlands Police. Okay. We are serving one of the
Thank you, Tariq. But we're coming near a break. We're coming near a break now, so I'm just going to kind of finish off, because, we need to have some tips on our listeners, what you want to give out before you go. What kind of motivations and tips, advice would you give for people wanting to join the police, and any volunteering work that they could do?
Obviously, if you want to do this right, I would say follow your heart, do what you want to do, achieve things in life. Obviously, if you want to try out, what's available to you, if you don't want to become a regular officer, there are volunteer posts as well, such as being a special constable or cadet leaders voluntarily. You can come and, have a taster of it. You get a uniform, you get powers of arrest. You have the same powers as a police officer.
Okay, Tariq, I'm going to have to cut you short there. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we're nearing a break now. So, Okay, that was Tariq from the West Midlands Police, and we're going to a break now. And you're listening to, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Ramadan Radio on 87.9 FM with myself, Fozia, with Fozia and myself, Zainab, and we will see you shortly after the break.
بسم الله.
Allah made everything. Allah made everything. Allah made everything. The earth and the blue sky.
Hey, little fish in the bottom of the ocean, moving along in a really cool motion. Did you ever wonder where you came from? Who is the Lord of all creation? The little fish said, "That's my Lord." The little fish said, "That's my Lord." The little fish said, "That's my Lord." Allah, the Creator.
Hello, welcome back. Just cutting the nasheed short because we got our second guest online. Previously, we were listening to Detective Constable Tariq Mahmood about his career within the police. So now I'm going to pass you over to Fozia to introduce our second guest.
So I'll just introduce you to our next guest, who is a specialist respiratory medicine, Qasim Ismail, who studied at the University of Manchester in clinical site physiology and is currently working at St George's Hospital in London. So assalamu alaikum, Qasim.
Walaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you, not bad. Welcome to the show. Thank you for volunteering and coming in as a guest to talk about your career.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we just want to know, so how did you actually become interested in this field? Because it's a quite odd field, actually. What does it entail as well, clinical physiology?
Okay, so I'll start off with what interested me into the field. From an early age, I've always been into science.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated by medicine. When I was studying for my A-levels, I had to make some sort of a decision between of mathematics and going down the medical route.
Mm-hmm.
When doing my research, I came across clinical physiology, and it was a bit unique. It was a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually applied for this degree and went on to it. What I liked about clinical physiology is the idea of specializing earlier on in your career. It's not a typical medical degree. And in the first year, you sort of study general medicine and physiology. But by year 2, you need to decide on what area you'd like to go forward in and become an expert in the field of. I chose respiratory and sleep medicine, where the focus is on the lungs and breathing disorders.
Mm-hmm.
There is also cardiac physiology, looking at the heart, and neurophysiology, exploring brain science.
Mm-hmm. And so you decide to pursue the one in the lungs then?
Yes.
Okay. And what does a typical day involve then as on your job?
Sorry, what was that?
So what are your main responsibilities, Qasim, within your job? What do you do?
Okay, so depending on what level you're working at, what organization you work for, your responsibilities might be slightly different. But typically, you're performing tests and investigations.
Okay, Qasim, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there. Sorry, the viewers can't hear in properly. So can you talk closely to your phone, please?
Yeah, is that better?
Yes, it is. We could hear you properly now.
All right. So I was just saying, depending on what organization you work for, what level you're working at, your role, responsibilities might be slightly different. But typically, as a physiologist, you're performing tests and investigations as a key part of your role. You're analyzing data, you're interpreting results, you're giving recommendations for treatment, trying to formulate a diagnosis and monitoring the condition going forward. One area that I work in is ventilation. So as we know, with the current coronavirus pandemic, ventilation is a key part of the treatment for patients who suffer from hypoxia, which is extremely low oxygen levels.
Mm-hmm.
Other parts of my role include management of a team, teaching and lecturing medical students at the university. I do some research, and if our research is published, we then present at sort of international medical conferences as well.
Right. That appears like quite complicated, if I must say. So what kind of education, training or background did your job require?
So it there's different pathways, but the main pathway is what I undertook, which is to do appropriate A levels, and those include mathematics, biology, and chemistry. And then, of course, apply for a degree in clinical physiology if that's what you'd like to do. And like I said earlier, specializing in year 2 in the area that you'd like to focus on. It's usually a 3-year degree, but depending on where you do the degree, it might be a 4-year degree as well. During the course itself, you have lots of clinical placements working in a wide variety of hospital settings. You have to pass exams. You need to pass a number of clinical competencies and something that we call OSCE examinations. The second pathway is if you're a postgraduate thinking about embarking on this sort of career later on, I guess. So you might be able to get into a trainee physiologist role where you'd have to complete equivalent examinations over a 3-year period, but whilst working as a trainee physiologist.
Right, okay, that sounds interesting, Qasim. I wanted to ask, actually, you just mentioned about your main responsibility. I find it quite interesting that the fact that you're not limited to just being within the hospital setting and that you're actually going out and lecturing as well.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I guess that, like I said earlier, it depends on your organization that you work for. But it just goes to show that you can do a clinical degree, but your whole role might not be just clinical. So you can really branch out and make things a little bit different for yourself as well. It's all about what you make of it.
Which is nice, I suppose, rather than just sticking within the hospital environment.
Sorry, what was that?
I said it's nice as well, rather than sticking within the hospital environment. You are going out and you are lecturing and you are helping others in a different aspect.
Absolutely. It keeps my day, keeps me on my toes, I guess.
So you're saying you're doing research in it as well, and you publish your research. What sort of research have you actually currently done then?
So the last research project that we did was the role of humidification in the delivery of something called continuous positive airway pressure, and seeing whether or not it's beneficial to start patients off with humidification straight away, or to go without humidification. And to see if the outcomes were different with or without humidification. Can
I just ask, is this humidification you're referring to? Is it talking about a disorder or a disease the patient may have?
So humidification is the addition of moisture to a system. So if you are on a ventilator or that type of treatment, you're getting a lot of positive airway pressure, a lot of large flows of air going into your lungs. That can be quite drying on the airways and might impact the tolerance for the patient. If you add moisture to this circuit, you might make the treatment more comfortable for the patient. So that's an area that we looked at and we presented some research on.
So is that like for somebody who may have sleep apnea, for example?
So sleep apnea is a treatment the
disorder where they can't...
That we can also deliver, yeah.
Okay, and did they find it beneficial then in that research?
So actually what was quite interesting is we found that there's no significant difference between delivering humidification and not delivering humidification, therefore recommending that we continue our current practice, which for our hospital is starting patients on standard therapy first and adding humidification should they struggle, rather than putting everybody on humidification unnecessarily with no objective outcomes.
Oh, okay, I see. I really love the fact that your job is so different and it's
so
not,
diverse, isn't it?
So diverse, exactly.
Yeah, and how is the current pandemic impacting on your day-to-day work?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me what a typical day is right now, I wouldn't know how to answer that. Everything has turned on its head. So it means that we've pulled off outpatient clinics. No patients are allowed to come into the hospital, put onto the wards, all hands on deck. You had people from all disciplines coming together to treat what is basically a respiratory condition. It impacts the respiratory system initially. My job initially was to train people up to kind of be able to do what I do and what my team does. So this would involve consultant doctors, nurse specialists from other areas coming to us in the respiratory ward or department and learning how to use ventilators and circuits so that should they be asked to do that, they are more comfortable and confident.
Right. Okay. So what advice would you give somebody who's considering your type of work? Because it seems to me, it seems quite complicated, and you've done a lot of different things within your role. So, I mean, what advice would you give somebody who's
I
wanting
mean,
to pursue your
I wouldn't
career
say,
path?
yeah, no, it might come across as complicated, but this is what you have to bear in mind after, 8 years of doing it. Whereas when you start off, it's a little bit different, but I would definitely recommend anybody going into the career to do their research and perhaps do some work experience to get a taste of it. And also that will actually help you in your university interviews. And what I'd say overall is if you're looking for a job which provides a sort of constant mental stimulation, with every day being different, constantly learning and progressing, and something that really empowers you to make a difference, to help people, then it's definitely the right path for you.
Okay, we've got some questions coming into the studio. Individuals are asking, thinking back to your student days, how
Yeah.
did you keep organized and motivated? It seems that you need to do a lot of work to get
Yeah.
where you're at. So, what kind of tips would you give students who might have a career in mind and are currently studying towards this goal? And this question has come from Aisha Hussain.
Okay, well, very good question, Aisha. I have to be honest, and I hope my parents aren't listening right now, but as a student, I wasn't always very organized. I was also living that university lifestyle. It was only when I started clinical placements I realized how important time management is. And these days, my diary is my life, basically. My life is in my diary. And as for motivation, I think that really comes from within. You have to do something that allows you to achieve fulfillment. So the tips I'd give to students is focus on the end goal and you will get there. Also pray to Allah as well. But also have time to experience life. Quite often you can find people have excellent academia, but not always necessarily the social skills and the communication skills, that bedside manner on the field, and that can really affect how successful they are when they embark on a degree in any type of medical field.
So do you feel that in terms of your job, you have to be a bit of an all-rounder?
Definitely. I'd say there are so many different skills, attributes that you should have. One main thing is really being able to stay calm under pressure. The hospital is such a fast-paced environment. The human body is unpredictable. Patients and relatives, their expectations can be quite high. You could be doing a normal review on a patient, and on the next day or in the next room there's a cardiac arrest, and you have to respond to that. You have to have a strong work ethic. So every day you have to give 100%, regardless of how tired you are or what is going on in your personal life.
Right. So what do you do to relax then, Kasim? What kind of things do you do to get you away from the hard pace of life?
Well, at the moment I work, sleep, eat, fast, repeat. But generally, I do like to get away when I can. So I like to travel abroad. I like to go to the gym, play sports, just go out, socialise with my friends, go back to the Midlands and visit my family. I've got family up north as well. So yeah.
So you do a variety of things. So in terms of Ramadan, you mentioned that it's you're doing fasting and working at the same time. How is that having an impact on everything?
I have to be honest, this year it's harder than most years, especially with everything that's going on. And the hours can be a little bit unpredictable. But, you got to try your best and sleep when you can, and getting those little naps are essential. I also live alone, which means that I don't have somebody at home prepping my iftar for me. So
do you do that yourself then? What do you prepare then? Do you freeze a lot of meals?
I try to. So I'll try and do some batch cooking and freeze a lot of meals. But I'm really keen on making sure. It's so tempting that when you've had a hard day of fasting to eat lots of high sugar and salt sort of food. But I really go for the fresh fruit and veg sort of option. It really does make a difference the following day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's within my family as well. We tend to go for like oily foods. And I think you kind of, I don't know why, at the time of thought, you actually kind of crave those types of foods. And the next day say, well, today I'm going to be quite sensible and I'm going to have something healthy. And then by the time...
I think Zanab, I'm the opposite then.
Yeah, is it? Are you quite healthy?
Yeah, I don't like to go for the oily foods.
Yeah, definitely. I try and stay as healthy as I can.
Yes.
I think for me, it goes a little bit out of the window when it's like iftar time, even though, I have like good intentions at the beginning. So, and I say, the next day I'm going to make sure I have something healthy, and then, it doesn't go according to plan.
I think with the fast being so long, though, you can't really eat all the oily food. That's how I feel. I feel sick eating all the oily food when I open my iftar. And that's why I'm not
definitely.
able to do that.
I try and avoid that as much as possible. But, in previous years, I'd be visiting my family and I'd save up that as a treat for when I go home because they have that on most days. But obviously this year that won't be happening.
Oh.
Yeah, I think what it is I don't know whether it's most Asian families or most Pakistani families in particular, we tend to like our oily foods.
Talking from your career background, though, Qasim, how would that impact your breathing, on an individual, rather, when they're eating all these oily foods?
So one of the most common sort of misdiagnoses that I see is when a GP refers somebody for just general breathlessness, and you look at their lung physiology and there's nothing really of significance. You look at their BMI and quite often they're overweight. So if you think about where your lungs are located in your chest, if you have excess weight on the chest wall area, you're making the work of breathing much harder. It really is as simple as you're overweight, that's why you're breathless. The tissue inside is fine. It's just that your chest wall cannot expand. So that's the impact that a poor diet could be having on your breathing. And also, I guess, not exercising can impact the function of your lungs over time.
Yeah, that's fine. That's a good point as well. I think a lot of people, especially in our culture, we don't really tend to be aware of it or take notice of it, even if we are aware. So what advice do you think, Qasim, you could give to somebody who's considering to go into your job or you follow your career aspirations?
So definitely look at all the different various options in terms of medical sciences and see which one is best for you, because there are some careers that are not patient-facing, so perhaps that's not something you're keen on, the unpredictability, but you like to be lab-based and look at reports and do tests behind the scenes. So there are lots of different options. Do your research, try and do some placement, some work experience, and then really put your all into it. And take every single job that you do, clinical or non-clinical, part-time or voluntary, take it seriously, because you never know when those skills might be needed later on in your life.
No, exactly. So you must see some losses of life as well while you're working.
Sorry, what was that?
Do you see patients passing away at your job as well? And, from
How does it impact
underlying
you,
diseases?
Qasim? Yeah, when you see, people passing away.
So it's something that you have to kind of come to terms with quite quickly, because when we have a lot of cases, the winter season or right now the pandemic, it's happening more often than, of course, we would like for it to be happening. I think it's important to have a bit of time to reflect, do what you need to do to kind of process that emotionally, and then really you then have to crack on with it, because like I said earlier, you have to give your 100% all the time, because perhaps, you've lost one patient, there was nothing that you could do, but the next patient, you might be really able to turn things around and help them to recover.
Yeah, it must be very difficult to experience that as well, though. So like you said, that you have to process it and move on. But then do you, like we were discussing with our other guest that called in earlier as well, the hospitals must have help for you there where you can resort to some kind of counselling or some support for you as well?
Absolutely. So there is lots of staff support and counselling available. It's very easy to access. Lots of private psychologists have actually donated their services to NHS and frontline workers, which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, there are lots of options available for you to access staff support.
Which is quite
excellent. We got a question coming in, Qasim, from our listeners. They're saying, thank you for coming on, and it's a very interesting career. What kind of work can they do? Could they get some voluntary work in, to get a bit of experience within your job, or is there a way?
Yeah. So I would definitely say if you get in touch with your local hospital, let's say it's respiratory and sleep medicine that is your interest, then obviously get in touch with the appropriate department and see what their rules and regulations are with regards to getting some work experience there. Otherwise, generally, as I was saying earlier, there's so many different skills that you can obtain from different fields that would help you, and there's so much crossover between roles that, things like teamwork. You can do teamwork working your weekend job in TK Maxx, for example. So, you know, take those skills, use them, take them seriously. And yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
reach
I
out to your
agree with you,
local hospital.
Kasim. Definitely. I think what it is, doesn't matter what kind of work experience you do, it is experience in itself, and it's like a stepping stone towards your future career, really. So any experience that you have from any job, like my father used to say, that no job is big or small, and every job gives you experience. So I think even if you're
Absolutely.
not in the medical field and you want to go in there, whatever experience you've got, that's your life skills to take
Whatever,
on
yeah.
board, really.
You pick up different skills from different work experience backgrounds that you go to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, um, you know, good analytical skills are really important as well. So, taking a look at patient symptoms and trying to think on the spot. And time pressure is time is always of the essence in the medical field. So yeah, things like that. You need to be prepared to
So
be able to
what?
deal with that and,
Yeah.
and stay calm under pressure for sure.
Oh, okay. So what experience did you have before you went and decided to choose your career, Qasim?
So I tried to get some experience. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it at a hospital, so I did it at a GP practice, which was still very valuable. I also had a part-time job, and as I was saying earlier, you know, I learned a lot of skills from doing other work, not just my clinical placement.
What was your part-time job, if you don't mind me asking?
And my part-time job was actually in retail, working in customer services.
Well, those are key skills you've picked up there to relate with customers, then to take on to relate with your patients at hospitals as well. So it has been
Exactly,
beneficial.
because they're members of the public, and it's the public that you'll be dealing with in hospital as well.
Which is brilliant. All right, so could you explain a typical day at work? I know currently there's a kind of coronavirus pandemic happening, but if that wasn't happening, what would a typical day of your work life look like?
So, yeah, every day is definitely different in our field. But let's say once I get in the morning, we have our morning huddle. I'm responsible for a team of junior physiologists, so I will be allocating their tasks, assigning them to clinics, checking if there are any equipment calibration issues. So we use quite highly sensitive medical equipment, and it needs to give us reliable results. So if there's any issues with the calibration of that equipment, we of course mustn't use it or try to troubleshoot it as much as possible. Getting onto my emails. So first thing I need to do when I get into the office is check my emails. It's surprising how many people might email you overnight. If I have a clinic that day, I need to prep for that clinic, check that the patients that I'm seeing have had all the investigations. If not, perhaps get somebody to chase those results. Do my clinic, do my letters, writing to the GP, letting them know what's going on.
Sorry, Qasim, can I just ask you, when you say do your clinic, do you mean, is that when you see your patients?
Sorry?
When you say do your clinic, is that when you see your patients?
Yeah, so if you are doing an outpatient clinic, so if you're seeing pre-booked patients, for example, if I've set somebody up on ventilation whilst they're an inpatient, quite often these sort of treatments are lifelong. But without the treatment, the patient will enter respiratory failure again and be hospitalized and hopefully not, you know, die as a result of that. So these patients are then discharged and then they're put into my clinic so I can follow them up and ensure that they continue to receive optimal ventilation and that their blood gas status is corrected.
So are you? Do you have many assistants helping you out then? Because it seems like your day is quite busy and you do have a lot to do. So do you have any assistants in that?
Yeah, so first of all, we're a team of physiologists. So there's a couple of us that do the ventilation clinic, and the junior physiologists do more of the diagnostics. Beyond that, we work as part of an MDT, so it's not just about the physiology remit. There's consultants there, there are nurses, there are healthcare assistants, and everybody has a part to play. You know, just so that the patient booked on my list doesn't mean I'm the only one involved in their care when they enter through that door.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Qasim, for coming on our show. We're nearing the end of our show now, so I'm going to have to cut our call short. It was really interesting talking to you, and, you know, thank you again for taking out time and explaining in detail what your job entails. But, you know, inshallah, we'll probably have you again in the future shows. So thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you for everybody listening, and yeah, inshallah, if you want to invite me again, I'll see what I can do.
We definitely will. Thank you. Okay, that was Qasim Ismail from the medical field from St George's Hospital in London. We also had Detective Constable Tariq Mahmood from West Midlands Police. We're coming to the end of our show now, but we've had like quite interesting information given to us, Fozia.
Yeah, they have the Detective Constable as well, PC Detective Tariq Constable gave some very good insights into his job and how you can pursue a career in that if you want to. And it came down to determination as well,
Yeah.
and to the fact that you shouldn't let others push you back just because of your culture or your background.
Yeah.
And Qasim gave a good insight as well about how his role was just not limited only to the hospital, and how it entailed him doing lectures as well and research-based work as well. So that was nice to see.
Right. Okay. And I'm gonna just finish off because we're back here next week again, and we'll have 2 more guests on our show, talking about their particular careers. But I would just like to finish off saying that people listening out there, that it doesn't matter what kind of job role you're in, or you're thinking about, get some voluntary experience in there. Join if you're passionate about something or you want to pursue something. Do that. Go and get some voluntary experience, whether it's with the police, whether it's within medical field, whether it's any other job. Try and get some experience, because then that'll give you a bit of insight of how to go about getting into that particular field. And also, see Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as our role model, and